I have here the 2016 Monte Bello from a really fantastic year on the mountain with the blend of 72 Cabernet Sauvignon, 12 Merlot, 10 Petit Verdot, and 6% Cabernet Franc. It's unusual that all four grapes that we grow in the various plots on this mountain fully ripen and in blind taste will combine. In more recent years, it's becoming more of an occurrence that all four can actually get to optimal ripeness and be harvested and brought in through our assemblage process. In years past, it was more challenging. Petit Verdot, Cab Franc would be the two varieties most challenging to grow on the mountain, and some years, one or the other would not be in the blend. But with where we are today in farming and really fine-tuned viticulture from our most knowledgeable vineyard team, we're able to really get every parcel fully ripe, brought in, fermented carefully, and when we sit down to do the assemblage, we'll blind taste, and it's become much more common now to have all four grapes in the blend. So 2016 as a growing season on the mountain, it was a dry year. It was the 5th year of drought. The vines were beginning to really show a lot of stress due to that deficit of water. We don't have irrigation in the vineyard, so the vines really have to make do with what they get in the winter months. Luckily for their entire lives, they've been dry farmed, except as young vines, when we go to plant a parcel, we do have to irrigate to get the roots established. But we're irrigating in a way where the vine's roots are being trained to go down and follow the water to get to the water table that is naturally occurring. But in 16, we're dealing with great concentration, and as you can see, incredible color. I mean, we're never at a deficit of color with the Monte Bello grapes. We have thick skin in the Bordeaux varieties, and in our site, with elevation and ocean proximity, the way the vines grow here and ripen their grapes, they can really develop deep color and really rich and ripe tannins. So as we go to harvest the grapes, and as I'm walking the vineyard rows, sampling and tasting, I'm chewing on the skins and I'm tasting and chewing the seeds and really getting a feel for the tannin maturity as well as the flavor development. So the picking decision's always by taste. So as soon as we see that the grape has moved from tasting green to ripe, that's the trigger for bringing the grapes into the winery and carefully destemming and doing small batches of whole berry fermentation. And every year we treat differently. So we really try to figure out early on with the earliest fermentations, what's the tannin extraction that year? And we quickly adapt. So in a highly tannic year like 2016, we backed off on our pump overs where we're putting juice through the skins to extract. We pressed earlier to avoid being on the skins too long to get too much tannin. And then in pressing, by putting the skins into the press and gently extracting the press wine out, pulling fractions along the way, we're able to then taste through, pinpoint the absolute best, and only bring those back to the free runs. We barreled down all the lots, and there's 45 plots on this mountain of the different Bordeaux varieties. Half of those generally are what we reserve for the estate bottling. The other half from the most stressed sites of the older vines, really higher up on the mountain, those are generally the blocks that come together to make Monte Bello. But there's never been a vintage in my time at Ridge where we've taken all of those 25 or so plots and put them all together as Monte Bello. We're very careful in blind tasting and only bring the absolute best of the vintage together. So it's a very careful blind tasting. It's the entire team, winemaking team, our viticulture team, we're all sitting down blind, tasting through the same wines, scoring and deciding what are the absolute best classes of each flight, and then kind of arriving together with a group consensus of what we think the absolute top blend of the year is going to be. But it's a lot of tasting, and it's not something we do in one day. We're generally having to sit down for 2, 3, 4 days, going through, tasting carefully, seeing if we add this lot what does it do? It might be a 1% addition or 5%, and it might steer the assemblage a certain way where it changes the character of the fruit, the tannin structure. And so we're carefully tasting through, making these additions, going through the different iterations of blends to finally get to that final glass. And once we're there, then we like to line up the prior 10 vintages and blind taste and see how does the new vintage compare to what we have already bottled or committed to as a blend, just to make sure that there is good continuity, that the Monte Bello character is really carrying through. Because, you know, we have this really exotic terrain of Monte Bello. It's all fractured limestone. And in the most stressed sites here, you see that character of the limestone amplified in the grapes. And so that's what we're really looking for when we're blind tasting and making this assemblage, is we want to smell the kind of wet stone, the limestone. We want to smell that deep, rich cassis fruit. And that's all here in the glass. It's perfume. It's this essence of Monte Bello. It's a fantastic wine on the nose, and it carries through onto the palate with just so much intensity. It's a powerful wine, and it's deriving its power not just from sheer intensity of fruit, but there's tremendous complexity. There's a lot of layering that's going on here between the different varieties, the different parcels. And also, I mean, this is the only wine we make that has 100% new oak given to it. And so in the cellar, I've got, in any vintage, anywhere between 18 and 30 different barrels from different parts of America that are part of that year's blend. So you have all these different American white oak barrels imparting even more complexity to this wine. And it generally spends about 18 months in barrel, and as it's settling, we're racking, you know, using gravity and the moon to help with clarification. We're working the wine, getting it to bottle, and then in bottle, once in bottle, we've got, you know, probably the most expensive corks you can find in America. These are from Portugal. They've been screened, they've been tested, they are top grade, highly dense. You know, these are corks that are going to really help seal this bottle and give it its expected, you know, ageability of 5 to 6 decades, or in some vintages probably will even go beyond that. But it all begins with the grape that we have here, you know, having the intensity, the ingredients to work with, and the careful winemaking techniques that we have to really draw that quality out and into the wine, and then carefully take care of the wine throughout the time it's in the cellar to finally get it to bottle. And once in bottle, know that we have made one of America's greatest Cabernets that has, again, the greatest aging potential. You know, it can be cellared for many decades. And it's a wine that will improve with time. I've been fortunate enough in my time at Ridge to have been able to taste back to those early 60s of Monte Bello, and can see for myself just what this site has been able to achieve in producing some of the most amazing wine of the world. So it's a pleasure to be making this wine. It's a wonderful wine to enjoy right now, but it will also get better with time, and I hope you enjoy it as much as I do.